Hi, and welcome to the first episode of Central Florida Profiles, where we will talk to Central Florida professionals, all sorts of people who are involved in the real estate industry, and has some kind of connection and might be helpful for you if you're looking to buy or sell a property or maybe already own a home in Central Florida. My name is Bent Danol, and I'm a real estate broker here in Central Florida. I've been doing this for quite some time now, and I've dealt with a lot of people. So a lot of these episodes have come to mind because of questions people have asked me and questions I have not been able to answer, but I've had to refer them to somebody else. And with me today, I have Stephen Chambers, who is an expert on a lot of things. But one of the things we're going to talk about today would be roof claims and when to involved an attorney. But I think it would be better if you introduce yourself, Steve. Because if you can introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Ben. Sure. My name is Stephen Chambers. I'm an attorney at Stovash, Case, Shea, and Pierce. And prior to my employment with Stovash, Case, Shea, and Pierce, I was a business owner at a law firm, Chambers Legal Team. And at that firm, all I did was first party property insurance claims. So I worked with homeowners and policyholders, some commercial policyholders, in order to basically get their rights under their insurance policies with insurance companies. Now, primarily my practice is complex business litigation, construction litigation, but I try to do homeowners insurance policies as often as I can. I don't know if you're aware, Ben, but there's been a newer law now. I still say new, but it's been in place for about over a year, that makes some changes to Florida insurance law. And so it's been a little bit more difficult for attorneys and contractors alike. And I suppose from the perspective for insurance companies too. So in terms of claims, that has kind of changed the game.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. But because when you told me about this a little while ago, I wasn't even aware there was any rule changes. So I think it's important for people to know what's happened, even though it's happened about a year ago. I think a lot of homeowners are not aware of exactly what happened and maybe why it's happened. Can you tell us a little bit about what exactly happened a year ago?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think maybe of a more like philosophical perspective of why this happened is because Florida has some insurance issues. We have hurricanes, we've got fires, we've got floods, we've got all of these things that raise our collective premiums, and it's harder and harder to obtain insurance. You have to have insurance. You know all of this very well, selling and in buying homes and things of that nature. Insurance is absolutely necessary here, but because of the peninsula we live in and the volatility, it's hard. So as a reaction to a lot of this, there was a bill that Ron DeSantis passed that was fundamentally changed a lot of what I would say were the pros and cons of what kind of led us into that specific temperature in the insurance industry in Florida. And some of the key takeaways of this, and this bill passed. The new deadline, I believe, was somewhere in March of 2023. So we're coming up on almost on 2 years. But like any bill or law, there's all these retroactive periods. So it's very particular to your policy. So like if your policy was in effect before January 1st of 2023, these are all things that a professional could help you assess. But typically you get new insurance now, you're under the new insurance laws. New takeaways, a big one that a lot of attorneys in my position don't like was their assignment of benefits was removed. I don't know if you're aware what assignment of benefits are, but it's essentially when you can take your standing in your policy and you can assign it to another individual, say a roofing contractor or a water
So
mitigation company.
basically what it is, if whatever claim you have, you can, whatever and money you might be owed by the insurance company, you can assign that to somebody else. That's what it is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now, again, like from a philosophical standpoint, is this a good thing or a bad thing? It doesn't really matter what I think. It happened. And, to be honest with you, I think that what we did see was a lot of, from the perspective of an insurance company, it was a lot of gotcha moments from companies, policyholders, whatever, where say their homes would be flooded by a storm event, and they would get a water mitigation company to come in. They would be told to sign this document, and then we'll take care of it, through your insurance company. And the insurance companies were becoming flooded and inundated with these kinds of assignments of benefits. And rather than revamping the entire industry, the entire policy, whatever that might look like, I can't even begin to imagine how to nitpick, how to regulate that. They just said no more. So it's bye-bye AOBs. We call them AOBs. So that's not happening anymore. With the hope, of course, that it's going to lower premiums and also make insurance companies act faster and do the right thing when they get these kinds of claims. So a lot of that has yet to be seen how that's going to be affected. But along that line, insurance companies are required they've tightened a lot of the deadlines for insurance companies to act and to react for insurance claims. They've also tightened certain deadlines for homeowners in order to make a claim. Like, for example, it used to be 2 years you could make an insurance claim. It's gone down to 1. But insurance companies used to have like 14 days after they get an insurance claim to do anything about it, to respond. Now they have 7, so they've cut that in half. And while 7 days may not seem like a lot, when you're talking about a disaster, a 7-day window, 1 week between when an insurance company is required to respond is kind of a big deal. They have to begin investigating again. It used to be 14 days. That's been cut in half. It's a week now. Same thing if they want to conduct an investigation on the property, do a walkthrough and see what kind of damage there are. It used to be, I believe it was 45 days, maybe even more, but they've cut that down. Now it has to occur within 30 days. And along those lines, and this was one of the more frustrating aspects when I was actively pursuing many claims at once against insurance companies, is now insurance companies, if they do make an investigative report about your property, they are required to give that report to the policyholder, to the homeowner, which I think is a really good addition. It's a great change.
So they didn't have to do that before?
No, before they didn't have to do that. And unless the insurer really got on them and asked for it. And typically I would see that these homeowners would come to me and they'd say, we got denied. Here's the letter that they sent to me. And in the letter, they would cite the policy language as to why they're denying or why they're saying the claim should be underpaid for whatever reason. And they would cite the policy language. And then a lawyer gets involved, like myself, and I realize, there's a engineer's report or something that they have. And it would be this game of cat and mouse, or they don't have to give the report. When are they going to give the report? And so what we'd have to do is say, all right, well, I guess we're going to get an engineer to go look at the property too. And then we have a report. It's very cost prohibitive when you think about it in this way. Everybody's going to have to shell out money in order to do this. The insurance company, the homeowner, or an attorney, whoever. And along that line, from my perspective, the biggest change for the new House bill was that homeowners are no longer able to collect their attorney's fees from the insurance company. So we've now gone to Florida's typical system. We've removed the statute that allows for attorney's fees to be recouped outside of, say, in a roof claim. Let's say the roof is $25,000 to replace. 2 years ago, I could get that roof negotiated. All right, $25,000. Here's a check to the homeowner. Go get your roof fixed. Congratulations. And the insurance company is going to pay my firm X amount for our costs and our fees associated with having to go through this process. The costs and fees are no longer there. So it's important for homeowners to understand that and to think of it more along the lines of every law or every law firm that you see advertising in the world of like personal injury or like car accidents. Now that's kind of the scenario we have with an insurance claim. So an attorney's going to typically be taking a portion of the proceed check that comes to you, which is unfortunate for policyholders. I think that is, from my perspective, and most homeowners who may be dealing with a smaller claim. And when I say smaller, I don't mean to minimize what $25,000 or whatever would be, but in the world of insurance, this would be a smaller claim.
If I don't know and we don't have to talk about what an attorney would typically charge, but if we look at personal injury insurance attorneys, they would typically, as far as I know, charge about 30%. So if you get a $25,000 check for a roof that costs $25,000 to replace, and you then have to pay your attorney a third of that almost out, then where's the rest of the money going to come from? I can see that.
Yeah. And so that's why when I say smaller claims and not minimizing the amount, but it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. No. And I think that when you look at public policy behind why this House bill passed, it's Florida trying to stop the bleeding of what is just the insurance industry is we need some change on both ends. And so I think that was kind of the reaction there. My personal feelings about it really have no bearing on it. I'm a lawyer. We always think of ways of how you can make this work for your client. And there are ways in litigation where you can reverse the burden back to the insurance company. And these are technical things, but I have no problem sharing them. You can always in litigation, you can file something called a proposal for settlement during litigation. And that's one way of saying to an insurance company, we're serious about our claim. And by filing this proposal here, we offer to settle this for, say, $20,000. If you don't take this and we go to trial, you will have to pay our attorney's fees separate from what we're alleging in our. So there are little things that a good attorney can do to say, and this also helps with the gatekeeping, because if you're an attorney and you're going to take a case, you better be prepared that this case is good enough to go to a trial, Yeah.
So are there any, we talk about changes for the insurance company. Are there any changes for the homeowner and what they need to do? Anything tight? You said mentioned one thing, that the claim period is now down from 2 years to 1 year, but is there anything else that they need to be aware of when they're looking to file a claim? You think?
Yeah, the big one is you don't have 2 years anymore. So if something happens to your property, you need to act fast. You really have got to be on top of it. Where this really matters is when we're talking about a latent thing, something that you don't see the damage for right away. And this can happen. Let's say you have a hurricane or high winds that come through and they lift up some of the shingles on a property's roof, and they allow water to go in, say, to an attic or a crawl space up there, and it sits, and it created that first wind opening, and then a year later you get another hurricane or another wind event and it hits that same area, and now you've got standing water that you don't see until maybe a year later or whatever in that dark circle in your ceiling's drywall. So there's some complications there, but a lot of times, that can be overcome by, when did you notice the damage? And then there's going to be the whole, let's figure out when the event of that damage took place. But typically, if you know that your home was damaged or possibly damaged, you need to act fast. And in acting fast, the first step now, in my opinion, would always be to get your claim process started through your insurance company. Whereas before, I may have said to a homeowner, okay, well, what you want to do is get your ducks in line. You want to go ahead and maybe you want to contact a public adjuster or something. No, I think the first step now here is get that claim in with your insurance company. The House bill has contemplated that this is going to speed up the process on the insurance company's end. So get that speedier process started.
That makes sense. So are there any sort of...
Are you there?
So yeah, we're back from our little internet interruption. So what was the I was asking you if there are any common mistakes that homeowners make when they file an insurance claim that makes it more difficult to do your job if they eventually end up talking to you about it.
Well, I don't know if it is typically a mistake, but I think that there are a lot of outside factors, entities that are trying to convince or to get homeowners to say let them help them with their claim or to do this. I don't think that that's in the interest of homeowners anymore. Say if you get a knock on your door after a storm event and it is a company saying, hey, we've got a lot of homes in this neighborhood that we know their roofs are damaged or whatever, we can help you, assist you, whatever. What would be more important for that homeowner to consider is, do I have damage to my property, or do I think there might be damage to my property? At that point is when they should contact their insurance company. Take the card of that company if they feel inclined to do so. Take the number of the individual, whatever they want to do. But first and foremost, just on their own, I think get the claim process started through their insurance company. Because especially if we have another storm, like another hurricane here in Florida, part of this bill also limited insurance companies from getting extensions or carve outs after emergency situations. It is actually much harsher on insurance companies when it comes to storm events and how they have to respond. So they're not going to be able to get an extension from, say, the Office of Insurance Regulation typically, or anything like that, by saying, well, this is a major event, it's an emergency. They may, if the governor declares it one, right? But they are still required to do things within certain windows and timeframes. So the longer a homeowner starts thinking preemptively about what they can do with someone else prior to filing the claim, I think they're not really doing themselves a good service under this new law. There's always time once the insurance claim is started. If you need, as in the medical field, a second opinion or something like that, that's where someone like myself could come in. That's where someone like a public adjuster could come in. But I think right now in Florida, it's important to just get your claim started. And especially after an event where you live in a neighborhood and oh, everybody in this neighborhood was affected. Well, what do you think your neighbors are also doing too? And there's only so many large insurance companies in the state of Florida now. A lot of the companies in the last 5 years have either gone kaput or they have left Florida. So there's going to be a queue. There's going to be a line for people who are trying to get some answers as to what's going on with their property. So I would say just get it started if you feel you have a claim. And if you do get a response from your insurance company after you file a claim and you really do not think that that is what's happening, then that's where I would say you call one of those people that you either hear, like myself, or that you have met, and you say, hey, what can I do now? What rights, what types of things am I allowed to do in order to present what I believe is my case to this? And the good news, I suppose, with the new law is that it has kind of forced a lot of this to occur outside of litigation. Whereas before, there was a couple steps that would happen. You'd file a notice of intent to litigate to the insurance company that puts them on notice. Hey, we don't believe that your position here is correct, and so this is where we're headed. There's all kinds of other. If you have an arbitration clause in your insurance policy, you're probably going to have that happen before. So it's taking a lot of the quick, let's go to court, let's sue over this, out of that factor, which, from the perspective of an attorney who can no longer recover his fees, is both problematic and also somewhat valuable. It really depends on the situation, but it's definitely a different environment that we're living in. So first and foremost, file the claim. get it going. And from there, if you have questions or if you're skeptical about the motives, even of your insurance company, talk to somebody.
So you're saying file the claim and see what the insurance company responds before you talk to an attorney or an adjuster. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because at this point in our current state, you're not going to have to wait that long. That's one of the good changes here. So typically, within 7 days, they're going to have to communicate with you, right? It's not going to be 2 weeks anymore. Within 7 days, they're going to have to make a decision about your case. It also plays those timelines are also. It's important for a person who is making a claim to, and they could do this to their insurance company. They could ask, okay, I'm making a claim. Do I need to file a proof of loss? If someone doesn't want to look at their policy as to that, and they're supposed to be given the correct information from their insurance company, yeah, first thing you got to do is file a proof of loss. They should get a checklist, and here's how you make a claim, and it should all be done through email. But you could also, during the I'm making a claim process, you could contact a professional and you could say, hey, I'm filing a claim. I just want to make sure that I'm putting all of my ducks in a row and I'm not missing anything. Do I need to file a proof of loss? Do I need to do anything like this? And somebody like myself could quickly review your insurance policy and say, yep, your policy says that within X amount of time, you need to file a proof of loss. Here's what that looks like. And here's how you need to fill that out and send to them, if you have questions. But again, because we're kind of taking this Wizard of Oz veil between the insurance companies and the policyholders away, I think that's the intention of this law. Because we're doing that, my hope is that the claims that are being begun and processed after January 1st of 2023, these policyholders are getting the information as they call or email or whoever they're talking to and saying, I think my home's damaged. What do I do? My hope is that they're getting a packet that says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's what you do. Yeah. Okay. So a roofer once told me that in order to get your insurance company to pay for a new roof, you only have to have 2% damage to your roof. Is that correct?
In Florida. So there's case law and there's law that states, I think it's 25 is the percentage.
Okay.
But
yeah, because 2% sounds a little low to me.
That would be very low, but it wouldn't have shocked me, 10 years ago, the way that Florida's insurance was then. It was very pro policyholder. But no, it's not 2.5%. Typically, that's what people say is 25% of the roof needs to be damaged in order for a full replacement. And there's some truth in that, but if I'm being completely honest, that's really not the initial argument. If there's gonna be an argument that's made, it's typically that it's not covered, right? That's usually where the dispute lies. It's gonna be the insurance company saying, let's say after a hailstorm, we had our adjuster up there and they did the powder test and they didn't see any indication of
what's the powder test, if you don't mind me asking?
So if in a hail event, they on a shingle roof, they'll go up on the roof with a piece of chalk and they'll look for divots, just like in golf, because when a large enough hailstone hits a shingle roof, it will take some of that gravel off in a little circular pattern, and they'll circle them all. They'll go up there and they'll circle them all and they'll take pictures. Well, in a metal roof, they can take chalk, like a pool cue, right, and powder chalk, and they can wipe it on the metal surface and it will show divots. A good adjuster on either end, what they'll do is, they'll look at a shingle roof and they'll say, well, I wonder if they have an aluminum mailbox. You see what I'm saying? So if you can't see the divots on a shingle roof that well, let's go check the mailbox and let's powder the mailbox, or let's check some of the galvanized coverings of the flutes in the ceilings, or some of the ridge lines and ridge caps of the roof where there are metal parts, to see if we can find those metal divots there. So typically what you're gonna see is not a dispute as, we don't need to pay for this because it's not enough of the roof damage. You're going to see that a lot. That's more down the road, once money is being discussed and they believe that there's damage that could be owed, maybe it's not the deductible, maybe it's not this or that. But once they're talking about money, the 25% the coverage for a full replacement, yeah, that'll be a discussion. But typically at the beginning, the dispute is over, was this covered under the policy?
Mm-hmm.
And there's all kinds of I mean, I've seen what I would call less than logical ways of trying to get out of that, you know. But I think we're going to see less and less of that from the insurance companies' positions. I hope at least, but I really don't know. I have a colleague and a friend who works in Tampa, still does primarily what I used to do. And, you know, his perspective is that, well, it still goes on. It still happens. So really the takeaway here, I think, is the deadlines have shortened for insurance companies. They've got to act faster, which is good news for everyone, I think. Attorneys' fees have been taken away from policyholders and attorneys. Right? So now there's less incentive for a policyholder to pursue a smaller claim, I think, because how that conversation goes, if you're an honest attorney to an individual, would be something like, yes, you know, I think that your case, you're very likely to prevail here. I think you have a good one. But typically these can go anywhere from 6, 8 months to even well over a year. And at that point, if we settle, the money that I'm going to be paid will be out of your settlement, just like in personal injury. If we go to trial and I'm a good attorney, I have filed a proposal for settlement. And if we prevail, then they will owe us our fees and you will recover X and I will recover Y. But what a policyholder hears is, so you're telling me I'll get $20,000 minus $30,000 and change in a year from now for a roof? So that's where the industry has changed in a practical sense.
I guess in theory, what you're saying is because it can go on for so long, if the settlement is small enough, you could actually end up with attorney's fees that are potentially even higher than what they get from the insurance company. Is that possible?
Well, that would have been the case when we had the statute for the attorney's fees, right? Because you essentially are keeping a running log of your hours and you're billing the future bill to the insurance company on the assumption you're going to prevail. But now this is mostly going to be operated on a contingency basis, meaning it's just a percentage of the total
So it will
settlement.
still be a percentage, even though. So from your point of view, as an attorney, if it's a smaller claim and it goes on for, let's say, 12 months, you could end up making very little money in terms of how much time in relation to how much time you invested into it, because you have to settle for a percentage of the final claim.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not to get technical on my end of the thing, because nobody cares about that, I promise you.
No, I know.
There are, you know, fee multipliers and all kinds of other ways that an attorney can get creative to recoup the necessary amount of money that they have expended. But again, when you're looking at it from a time benefit analysis, it makes less sense than it used to for all the parties involved to pursue these kinds of things. Yeah. So the hope here is, okay, you know, the hope would be that it actually improves our insurance in the state of Florida. You know, if that is the end game to all of this, I wait with hope, to be honest with you. If it changes the industry where I used to be allowed to, you know, make my bread and butter, so to speak, as an attorney, if it changes that industry, so be it. I think that the point of insurance should be to achieve its end goal, which is to insure properties. And if it's functioning without the need for litigation, well, great.
So far, I haven't seen my insurance premium go down, though.
You haven't seen yours go up?
Go down. I mean, it hasn't gone down. It's still
no, I haven't. So. And I don't anticipate that we will be seeing that happen either, but that's probably for other reasons. But
Yes.
you know,
Maybe it would have gone up more if we hadn't had this change. Who knows? Yeah.
who really does know?
So,
I've been practicing now for 10 years, um, and the typically I've asked my colleagues who have been doing insurance and have been dabbling in it at least for, twice as long as I have, and they say, well, it's a pendulum. So what'll end up probably happening is, okay, there are some real downsides to this new law, and we will find those out as the industry continues operating under the new laws, and then the pendulum will have to swing back in a different direction to counteract some of that, and it's just gonna keep probably doing that, and you know, I think that's just the nature of living in this state.
yeah, I guess. So I think you did basically sum most of this up, but sort of so from what I hear is that it's getting quicker to get a claim processed now if you're a policy holder, um, but you have less chances of getting your attorney's fees covered out outside of the insurance claim. So it will be like an injury claim, with the exception that you're probably not going to get more money than the cost of replacing your roof. You're not going to get any extra for what do you call it? Uh, I don't. I'm lost words, but you're not going to get more money
There's a
out
lot
of
of
the insurance
policies.
company than what it costs to replace the roof. Whereas if you have a personal injury case, you might get more than your medical bills because you had loss of
Right.
income in long term and stuff like that. So from a policyholder's point of view, if you need an attorney, you might end up getting a little less money than it will cost you to replace your roof if you need an attorney. Yeah, but you're getting a faster process. Yeah.
You're getting a faster, well, in the idea is you're getting a fairer process, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah.
One of the changes is, the insurance company used to have a month and a half, like 90 days, to deny or to pay you. And when you think about that, 90 days is a pretty long time for a
Especially if the
personal,
roof is leaking. Yeah.
especially if your roof is leaking, right? So that's been shrunk down to 60, and 30 days, whatever. It's a third less. So after a storm, when you have thousands of claims, a 30 days is, those insurance companies are working. Put it that way.
Yeah.
So it's a big difference. But what you were saying about, like in a personal injury claim, I think it was like you won't recover medical expenses. Well, this is also where someone who is well versed, like an attorney, could help you out with your policy, because all policies are different. For the most part. And some policies do have additional living expense clauses and things like that, personal property clauses, your coverage A, B's, and C's, and that nature of those. So just to have someone look over that might be helpful, for a person. So let's say that their roof is really damaged and it's consistently leaking water into it every time it rains after this storm, and that causes mold to start growing in their home. And in the 60-day window, when they've been given, the insurance company's been given this time to make a decision, let's say mold started growing, and then even after, and the insurance company denies them or says it's under your deductible, we're not going to pay. Well, what can that person do? I think they need to look at their policy and see, do we have the ability to go stay somewhere else while we get this mitigated or while we get this repaired? These are the big decisions that I think still do require someone that understands insurance law, because not only are they going to require someone to spend their own money that they're going to have to ask the insurance company to pay for, but they're going to be a lot of times having to contact companies to help them repair things. If the that it's going to cost money. And what you don't want to have is for an insurance company to say, why would you hire X person to come in and do that when you didn't even tell us, or you didn't whatever, we would have not done that. It's too expensive. And now you have already done something with your own money. It's like a dispute within a dispute within a dispute. And you want to try to avoid those, but here's the catch-all that is often so confusing. And all insurance policies usually contain a clause that say the policyholder has a duty to mitigate damage, right? So it's your duty to, if you see something that's continuously, affecting your property, you have a duty to try to stop it from making it worse.
And I
So
would say you also have an interest in doing that, but
well, of course,
yeah.
But the gray area, that fine line when you're talking about a claim and getting paid for the damage is, okay, your duty to mitigate, and where does that money come from, and how is that money going to be recovered? These are questions that can be answered by someone who's looking at your policy, and someone who has seen these types of disputes as they practically unfold.
Well, I agree. I mean, if the insurance company doesn't come straight back and give you what you expected and what you need to get, I would say that's when you need to contact somebody like yourself and make sure that nothing has been overlooked.
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. That's the short end of it. I think that any policy holder, any homeowner can get themselves up to that point of coverage decision.
Yeah.
And I think it's at that moment where the insurance company has made a decision. That's where maybe you want to get a professional.
And you accept clients, I suppose, if anybody needs advice with storm claims or anything like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I always take phone calls, and even if even if it's not something that either the policyholder or myself wants to pursue, to the best of my ability, I will try to, in a non-legal advice type of way, to direct the person into the most logical, as it's dictated by their policy. Because first and foremost, whenever someone calls me and they give me a set of facts about their property, I say, these are good facts, but I have to see your policy.
Is there a fee for that initial looking at the policy consultation?
I typically, for me, no, I'm going to have to look at that policy in order to determine if I think that this is something worth it for me, worth it for them. And that's just something that I do. And the reason that I do it is because, the quagmire that kind of got us into having to switch and change insurance laws and everything is the constant search for, how does this get me paid? And I think that ultimately, this is just a personal perspective here, is just I think that I could find the answers that I would need on my end in evaluating, and I think I could help the homeowner to understand the direction they would need to take by reviewing that policy in an amount of time that, if I'm going to try to view that as a part of my business model, it just wouldn't make much sense.
Okay. So I would, with your permission, I'll put your contact information in the description of this video. But if you could maybe say just a phone number people can call, so they know how to reach out to that.
So they can call 407-316-0393. And that's Stovash, Case, Shea, and Pierce. And our offices are right downtown in Orlando.
And you do claims all over Florida, obviously, no matter where people are.
Yeah. I've handled claims all the way up to Destin, Florida, right near Tallahassee. I've gone all the way down to the Everglades. So,
yeah. Yep. Because it doesn't really matter where you are, because the law and the policy, that's what matters. Really.
Exactly. Yeah. And it doesn't really matter where we are either, because a lot of my colleagues in this industry are spread out all across the state, and especially in an event where my phone starts ringing, like right after a hurricane or something like that, a big event like that. That's typically where most of the people I know end up being anyway. They're, your public adjusters, your water mitigation specialists, they usually end up in those areas anyway. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this and joining me today, Stephen. To me, it's been very enlightening to me, actually. I've learned a lot today, and I hope the people watching have learned a lot too. And thanks again, and thank you for everybody watching. And if you have any questions, like I said, the contact information for Stephen will be in the description of the video, so you can reach out if you have any roof insurance issues. Any last words from you? Maybe
No,
not last words, but last words for this podcast.
no, not last words for this podcast. I think that what in the future with you and I, Bent, I would love to discuss, how it looks when you're talking about selling properties and if there are claims here, because that's an area that some of those answers are very hazy and cloudy even for me, and I would like to hear your perspective on what that looks like when you're selling property. So that's for a future date, but yeah,
we can do that in the future podcast. That's actually we always look for subjects. So, well, thanks a lot, Stephen, and I hope you have a really good rest of your week.
You too, Ben. Thank you so much for me.
Bye for now.
All right.
We don't need to hang up, but we can cut.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. That was
Okay.
I think that was informative. I'm going to have to cut that middle part out where we had a little bit of a sketchy, and I'll send you the final cut so you can watch it and let me know if there's any. I hope we don't have to redo it, but if we have to, we have to. But I'll send you the final cut. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, I appreciate it. I really would like to have even if it's not on a podcast, because I'm interested if you even see that issue. When you're selling homes, do you ever see issues with open insurance claims?
I've had one from one of my agents, and I know they managed to close it out. So I would actually. I would love to know too, because I haven't but I can see how it can be an issue. Yeah.
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 I think because I've seen them, I've dealt with them. They're all different. So I think what I'd like to do is a more conclusive. If you're planning on selling your home and you have an open claim, here's the best course of action. I think that's a question that might, benefit your industry and also benefit, me, because people right now are either scrambling to buy. I think they're scrambling to sell. Either one. Or am I wrong there? You said you've been kind of slower. I don't know.
It's a little bit slow. I mean, we have. I talked to one of my agents yesterday. He's got a ton of listings, but none of them are moving. And it's not because they're. I mean, obviously, you could argue they are priced wrong because they're not selling. But I would say, judging from what other things in the area are selling for, I don't think he's priced them wrong at all. I think they're pretty fairly priced, but just not moving. So it's and generally we usually have a lot of closings this time of year in Southwest Florida. We've had very few, so it is quiet, and I don't know if people are waiting for January 20th and to see what happens. I guess that's a lot to do with it, because what's actually going to happen. I know a lot of people are looking forward to that date, and a lot of people are not looking forward to that date. So but it's either way. I think people are waiting for what exactly is going to happen. But that's my guess.
That is interesting. You say that. I have the same feeling, and it's almost it's not even in my industry. It just almost seems like in everything.
Yeah,
people are just kind of waiting to see in 6 days what it's going to look like.
What's going to happen? Yeah,
it's very interesting.
Yeah,
very interesting. All right, Ben. I appreciate you taking the time to have me. I hope I was a good guest.
You were a very good guest, and I am actually surprised that we managed to talk this long without any major interruptions other than the stupid internet. But
yeah. All right, great.
Well, thank you so much, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
All right, sounds good. Bye.